there, I'm Kim from Buttons and Bees. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make these vintage inspired Santa ornaments. I have a small collection of felt and sequin ornaments that I like to pick up at garage sales and estate sales when I can find them. But they're not always easy to come by and sometimes they can be a little expensive. So I decided to try making my own. Today I'll show you how you can make them too. A free pattern for these Santa ornaments is available on my website. I will leave a link to the pattern in the description box below. My design inspiration came from a picture of a vintage ornament I found on Pinterest. I like this design for a first sequin project because it's simple, it's small, and you can complete it in an afternoon. Let me show you what supplies you'll need, and then I'll take you through the sewing process. You'll need felt. I use just regular crafting felt. For this project, you'll need red, green, pink, white, and a flesh color, but you could use any colors. I made some of these ornaments in a pastel colorway and liked how they turned out. I designed the pattern for a 5mm size sequin. You'll need sequins in red, white, and green. You'll need some seed beads to match the sequins. I prefer the beads that have the metallic centers over just the clear ones, but you can use whichever ones you prefer. I used just plain Jane embroidery floss for this project, both for the beading and for the sewing. Just use one strand for the beading and then 2 strands for all of the sewing and applique. You'll need both a beading needle and an applique needle. The beading needles tend to be really long and then really thin so that the seed bead will fit over the head. I don't like sewing with such a long needle, so I found some shorter needles that are still small enough that I can get a bead over the head of it. Just choose whichever one fits your hand better. The embroidery needles are generally easy to fit and I just get a standard size. Onto the trim. You'll need some metallic trim for the bottom of the Santa and for the top loop. Also pick up a pom-pom and a jingle bell to finish the project. Finally, you're going to need a sheet of stick and stitch style paper. Both Pellon and Sulky make a product like this, and it is a genius way of transferring a design onto felt. I'll show you how it works. Note that the paper has a fabric side and then kind of like a wax papery side. You're going to want to make sure that you load the paper in a way so that you are printing on the fabric side of the paper. I just checked that little diagram on my printer, load it up, and now I am ready to go. I cut my pattern shapes out one at a time as I need them so that I can keep everything all in one place. When I cut them out, I kind of cut out just a little bit outside of the line. The next part is to peel off the backing paper. Sometimes it's a little bit tricky, but I'll eventually get it. You remove the kind of waxy paper, and then the fabric side will be a little tacky on the bottom. Just press that down onto the felt, make sure it is nice and smooth. There you go. And now I can cut it out just right on the line this time. Now that I have the top piece of the Santa cut out, I'm going to use it as a template to cut out the bottom piece of the Santa. Luckily, felt likes to stick together, so this isn't too tough of a job. Now we're ready to sequin. I like to put my sequins and beads just in these small little dishes. I've also used like a little saucer before and had good luck with it. I will talk you through the steps real quick if you haven't sequined anything before. It's real easy. So you're just going to come up through the center of one of those circles on the pattern, grab a sequin with your needle or with your finger from the flat side. You want like the cup of the sequin to be facing up when it's all done. Grab a bead, string them both down on your thread, and then needle down through the sequin only. Don't needle down back through the bead, just through the sequin. Oh, I'm grabbing the corner of that triangle, always hard. My thread is a little too long, and there's the first one. So you just keep going in the same manner. Every like 3 or 4 sequins, I go ahead and make a little knot on the back of the fabric. That way, if your thread breaks or you have something bad happen, you're not losing everything. Okay, there, the first one is finished, and now it's time to sequin both the beard and then the mittens. Now that everything's sequined, we can move on to the face. You'll need to start with the cheeks. You could either embroider them with a satin stitch or do like I'm doing and just appliquing some little pink felt cheeks on there. I just use a whip stitch, so I come up the back through the cheek and then go down like as close to the cheek as I can get on the face side. Put those two in place, and now we're going to move to doing the eyebrows. I'm going to load my needle up with 2 strands of black floss, and then I'm just going to back stitch that kind of half moon shape at the bottom of the eye. So get all of that done first, then work over to the lashes. Now I'm going to show you how I do the lashes because it'll be really hard to see on screen. After I back stitch kind of that half moon shape, then I go ahead and each lash is just 2 straight stitches from the top down and then again from the top down. So no need to fill them in. These stitches are so small, it's going to look like it's filled in when you're all finished. And there it is. So there's one more little embroidered detail that we need to do on the beard this time. It's going to make the Santa mouth, and it's a lazy daisy stitch. You come in from the bottom of that little circle, and then you're going to make a loop with your thread, like shoot for like a quarter size loop, and needle down right beside the place where you needled up. Keep that loop going because now you're going to needle up once at the top of that circle that's on the pattern. So needle up at the top there, and now grab the loop, put your needle through the loop, and there you go. Pull not super tight because you still want to maintain like a kind of oval shape. If you pull too tight, you'll just have a line. Needle back down and then knot it off, and there you got Santa's mouth. Now we're going to start putting things together. I've got 2 strands of white floss, and I'm going to whip stitch the beard piece over the face piece. This gets kind of like the shapes kind of want to wiggle around, so just readjust as you go. Make sure that you're getting both of the Santa eyes and the cheeks where you want them through that little window. I needle up on looks like I'm needling up on the white part of the beard and then needling down into just right where the beard meets the face. Go all the way around and then knot off your thread. The last thing to do before we wash away that stick and stitch is to sew the sequin on for the Santa nose. This part's pretty fun, and if I weren't filming this, I would be doing this just in my utility sink. You want to run some room temperature water, just enough to submerge your pieces in, and before too long, that stick and stitch is just going to start to dissolve. I often just, walk away and leave it for a few minutes. Luckily, I've never had a problem with any of the felt that I use bleeding, but if you were to use some hand-dyed like wool felt, I'd really watch for bleeding and maybe do the colors separately. So here you can see that it's coming apart. I've just time-lapsed it for fun. When it is almost finished, I'll take my pieces and run them under some cool water, then just wring them out and lay them on a clean towel to dry. Now that everything's dry, we can start sewing the ornament together, starting with the Santa face. I'm going to sew along the top of the hat and then along the bottom of the beard. You just center that face unit right under that last row of red sequins and whip stitch it down. Before we sew the mittens on, we need to put that trim on the bottom of the Santa because the mittens are going to overlap it a little bit. So cut a length of the gold trim. I usually cut mine a little wider than the Santa, then trim it later. Then I just use 1 strand of floss and do a little straight stitch tack stitch from side to side. And while you've got the gold trim going, go ahead and make a loop of trim for the top of the Santa and then tack the ends together. This is going to make it a lot easier to insert into the hat later. The last thing to do before we sew the back onto the Santa is to whip stitch the mittens in place. Just position them where you like, thread some green thread in your needle, and whip stitch them down. Now we can finally sew the back to this ornament. Line up those two triangles using 2 strands of embroidery floss and your embroidery needle. Go ahead and kind of hide the knot between the 2 pieces of fabric and then just whip stitch around the edge. Now, once you get to the white part of the beard, turn your ornament over and you're just going to want to take a stitch that goes through the red, clips into a little bit of like the face color and then back out again because you don't want that red thread to show on the white part. So now I'm going to go up to where we're going to insert the gold loop. Now this part is the tricky part. The problem is you're trying to go through 2 layers of felt and 2 thick layers of that trim. Plus that trim wants to wiggle around at the top of the triangle. So just do your best. Make sure that at some point you are making it through all 4 layers. And know that if it looks a little messy at the end, it's okay because you're going to be able to hide it with a pom-pom. Once you make it around the top, just finish the last 2 sides off. If you would like to stuff it with some polyfill, you certainly can do that. I liked mine just without. Last things to do are to add the pom-pom to the top and the jingle bell to the bottom. For some reason, I forgot to film putting the jingle bell on this little guy. But other than that, it is all done. I sure hope you have enjoyed this project. If you do have any questions, please leave them for me in the comments below and I will get back to you. So until next time, happy crafting. Bye-bye.